my name is Dana McDowell, and this is my theoretical stance presentation. Let's go ahead and look at who my students are and which theoretical approach best fits their needs. My students. I am a 5th grade language arts teacher, which means my students range from 10 to 11 and sometimes 12 if they've been retained. I have 3 classes that I see for an hour daily and 63 students in all. 7 of my homeroom students are IRR, meaning they have their individual learning goals, as well as a teacher pulls them for small group instruction for reading, math, as well as writing. I have 15 ESOL students, 7 who of which graduated the ESOL program, and the others receive ESOL every single day. Over half of my students are reading below grade level expectation. The current expectation for December, based on the Fontes and Pinnell assessment, is a level U. My students might be reading below grade level, but we still have an understanding of phonics as well as decoding strategies like letter identification and letter sound relationships that help us read. Since we're able to physically read, but we struggle with comprehension, I had to find the best model to help focus on the comprehension aspect of my students' learning. The best theory that focuses on comprehension is our top-down approach. The top-down models focus on a student's background knowledge being applied to reading. It focuses on what happens in the reader's head instead of which strategies do I need to use to decode. Oftentimes, our top-down models are used daily to help our readers make connections to what they are reading. When we use our background knowledge and make connections to our text, we're able to comprehend what we are reading and why it is important. Those personal connections are very important to understanding what we are reading. Let's talk about our historical background. When I think about our top-down literacy approaches, I often think about behavioralism versus constructivism. Behavioralism impacted the educational system at the same time as constructivism was created. Constructivism has helped mold what we know as the top-down literacy models or approaches. The constructivist theory focuses on how knowledge is constructed based on the individual. Since it focuses on the individual, our top-down literacy approaches focus on that as well. It is believed that when learning happens, students mix their new knowledge and their existing knowledge, their background knowledge, to create meaning, which helps the learning process. 2 people who have helped us understand this theory is Jean Piaget as well as John Dewey. Piaget's viewpoints can be classified as both constructivism as well as developmental. Piaget studied his own children to explain how they process information through development. Studying children's cognitive development throughout the years helped him create the theory of cognitive development. This theory helps describe how children's thinking change as they reach adulthood. There are 4 stages of this theory, and my students are at the 3rd stage, which is the concrete operational stage. At this stage, my students or children use what they know to start thinking about abstract concepts. When applying Piaget's theory to the classroom, teachers use it to help understand and explain our students' development. It gives us an overall understanding of why our students are thinking a certain way. We also are able to develop lessons and activities to help our readers become proficient. John Dewey's ideas of the unfolding theory were not influenced until the later 1960s. Dewey helped us determine the importance of how students grow through environment and teachers. Dewey believed that we have to prepare our students for the new world. We have to make our curriculum exciting and promote curiosity as well as support our students with motivation. Today we know Dewey's theories as the inquiry learning, and we use it to help promote our students' activity by creating their own learning. Let's go ahead and look at the theorists and theories that have helped use Dewey as well as Piaget's ideas to help form our understanding of our top-down theories. There are 2 theories that have helped determine the cognitive abilities of our students. The first theory is the schema theory, which explains how students create and use knowledge in relation to their schemata. Together, Richard Anderson and P. David Pearson worked together to apply this theory to reading. Together, they used the idea that everyone organizes what they know into their schemata, whether it be people, places, things, or language, and they applied it to reading, meaning that we use the different reading processes or our decoding strategies, how to skim a passage, and inferencing, and they are organized into the same folders as our other skills or information we like to learn about. Both Anderson and Pearson believe that students need to have a well-developed schema to understand what they're reading. This is why it's important to understand that our schemata is the foundation of the reading process. A person's schemata is related to their overall comprehension. We must have a clear understanding of different strategies that are in our schema to help us read. We also have to have a clear understanding of our different types of text we read. So, for example, if a student is reading about hiking, they have to have comprehension about hiking or a background knowledge about hiking to understand what the text is about. When a reader struggles, it means that they have limited comprehension. Along with Anderson and Pearson's schema theory, Louise Rosenblatt continued to expand on the understanding of schema theory. In her theory, the reading response theory, Rosenblatt believed that reading is unique and based on the individual. Our unique background schemas are why our reading should be different. Reading responses are based on the amount of background schema they have. There can be two types of responses, one that is fact-based or one that is based on our inferences, connections, or even our opinions. Together, both of these theories build on each other so that we understand how students interact and show what is essential to reading. Since our students make different connections based on their own experiences, we have to make sure to provide them with a background knowledge if they do not know. These connections can be based on their own experiences or what they've learned based on the text. As teachers, we have to incorporate both of these theories into the classroom so that our students know that there are multiple purposes for reading. This is why making connections to the text as well as our background knowledge are key to having a comprehension of what we are reading. Let's go ahead and talk about our classroom teaching. What theories can be applied to the classroom based off of our theories? Teachers can apply multiple theories to the classroom by understanding that all of our students are different. We all have different learning styles that relate to our reading based on our background or what we know about reading. Our focus needs to be on our students' needs, and we have to understand, based on Anderson and Rosenblatt, that our existing knowledge helps us comprehend, and reading is different for every student. Based off these ideas and theories, we can apply them to our overall teaching strategies as well as technology to help our readers become proficient. Let's take a look at teaching strategies. A couple of the teaching strategies that teachers use to apply our theories to the classroom are activating background knowledge, using follow-up or post activities, as well as making connections. A lot of the time, I like to use our activating background knowledge by using a KWL chart. This brainstorming technique has the students write down what they know about a topic before we read. Using the KWL is great for informational text because we're able to make connections and we're able to share what we know before we read. Another type of brainstorming activity would almost be like a web or webbing. You can see in the weather example that webbing is where a word is in the middle and we draw connections based on the word. Some follow-up activities that I like to use is think, pair, share. We use think, pair, share a lot when we are going into independent practice. We think to ourselves, then we pair with a partner. We talk about what we said with our partner, and then we share to the class. Another one that I like to use a lot with reading is summarizing. I have the example of the someone wanted but and so anchor chart, which helps our readers summarize someone who was in the text, what did they want in the text, what was the problem in the text, how did they solve the problem, and what happened at the very end. So summarizing is a great strategy for not only informational, but our fiction texts. Last but not least, a strategy that I use every single day in our classroom is making connections. That's text to self, text to text, or even text to world. In the top picture on the left, I have an example of annotating. A lot of the times, my students have to annotate what we read to understand. We have to write our connections to the side, whether it be text to self, so text to what I know as a person, text to text based on other texts we have read in the class or books that they've read at home, as well as text to world. So, how is our text applied to the world? So when I teach my students how to make connections and how to write to the side to annotate and to write down what they're really thinking, they're able to quickly understand what is going on. The comprehension goes up higher and higher, and they're able to answer those easy questions that are related to our passage that are normally taken for a grade. So making connections is very important. Let's talk about technology, one of our students' favorite things. Technology is a great way to create community as well as engage students in what they are learning. I use Padlet a lot as well as Jamboard. Padlet is a great way for the teacher to ask a question either before the lesson to activate that prior knowledge or that background knowledge, or even after we read to summarize. I like to use Jamboard as a way to use our KWL and our summarizing charts. These can be purchased on Teachers Pay Teachers, and Jamboard is a great Google resource that connects right to Google Classroom. And what students do is they use little stickies. So you can you can give them the question, you can give them the KWL chart in relation to that informational text, and they're able to, add that sticky note. Another thing that I really like about Jamboard is that students can use it together. So just like Padlet, everyone can see each other's answers. If you have the setting correct for Jamboard, everyone can see each other's Ks in their KWL chart, which is really nice. Another way or another piece of technology that I like to use for summarizing what we read, or even as like a journal for what we are reading, our personal reading journals, is Flipgrid. Flipgrid is a great way for students to physically talk to their computer. They don't have to write. They can physically say whatever they want based on the question, which is awesome. And I love to use these from the beginning to the end of the year, especially if I'm using a reading journal or like a digital reading journal, because students are able to go back all the way to the very first Flipgrid that they did at the beginning of the year. So they're able to see how much they've grown and how much they've changed. Two types of technology that I like to use for comprehension are Kahoot or Gimkit. Gimkit is very similar to Kahoot, but instead of Kahoot being on the board, it's individualized to the students' computers so that they cannot cheat off of each other, which is very nice. Gimkit has like a money reward, where we know Kahoot has a just like number award. The fastest person gets the most points. And most of the time with Kahoot or Gimkit, I will use it after a lesson to see, okay, this is what my students have learned based on us making connections to what we have learned, which is awesome. All right, let's go ahead and look at our summary and overall experience. The top-down models that are used daily in the classroom help our readers process connections that they have based on what they're learning. So overall, I've made an understanding that these models help me as a teacher understand what happens in my readers' minds. I'm able to understand the reading challenges they have, as well as how I can challenge them as a reader. So these strategies really help me push my students to become proficient and to work on that comprehension skill. And here is my reference line. Thank you all for watching.